This is my tutorial on how to set up a lasagna garden. The first step that I take is to flatten out cardboard boxes and put them in the walkways between the garden beds. This will prevent the weeds from growing in the walkways. The first layer of the lasagna garden is a brown layer. For this layer, I'm using leaves that I've collected from my neighbors. Make sure you spread it out well and cover the whole layer. You want this layer to be about 3 inches deep. The next layer is going to be a green layer. For this green layer, I'm using hay. It's not exactly green, but it's an excellent material to use as a green layer. You want this layer to be about an inch thick, which should give you about a 1:3 or a 1:4 ratio of brown to green. I don't have quite enough green material to use for this lasagna garden, so I don't have quite that ratio. The only thing this means is that it may slow down the decomposition of the materials that I'm using, but I'm setting it up in the fall, so I have the entire winter for it to decompose, so hopefully it should decompose fully by the time I'm ready to plant my garden. The next layer is another layer of browns, again just using leaves. And being sure to cover all of the hay. You want to try to break up all the clumps in the leaves. Any of the solid clumps will not decompose as well. You want to have more surface area. The next layer is going to be a green layer. What I'm using for this green layer is the tops of radishes that I had planted as a cover crop. Towards the end of the season, when I was done with the garden beds, I planted these radishes, and as they grew, it provided me green material for me to use for my lasagna garden layers. At the end of the season, I just cut the tops off, spread them back out when I was ready for them. The radishes that are still in the ground, the roots that are left, will decompose and further add to my lasagna garden. Again, we'd like to have more green material than this, but I just don't have any available. And another brown layer, more leaves. All these leftover paper bags that I have can also be used in the walkways to prevent the weeds from coming up if you don't have enough cardboard boxes. About half my garden I actually did this. The next green layer I do is seaweed. This is a pretty thin green layer because seaweed has a high salt content. We don't want too much salt into the garden. I went to a local beach and collected this off the shores. Once I brought it home, I left it in a bucket and rinsed it off really well, let it get rained on for a couple weeks to try to rinse a good portion of the salt and sand off of it. But there's still a lot of salt on it, so don't put too much in the garden. It is very nutritious for your garden though. One final layer of brown material on top of the seaweed, more leaves. Again, being sure to spread everything and cover everything well. When you're done, you should have about 2 feet worth of materials on each garden bed. By the end of the winter, I'm hoping that this will decompose down to about 2 inches. Again, because I don't have enough green material, it may not decompose that far, but it will eventually. And that's about it. Once I'm finished with this layer, I'm done. We just wait. If you want it to decompose a little faster because you're setting it up in the spring, feel free to add water to each of the layers. That'll help it move a little quicker. Otherwise, we just have to wait. And that's it. We're done.